Welcome back. I can't believe it's the last week of November, and it's the second week of our Being Relational series, 7 Ways in 7 Weeks. And this week, we're going to focus together on being centered. So when we talk about being centered and finding the center within, now you might be thinking, is this more of that sort of Zen Buddhist stuff? And we'd say exactly, indeed. Because being centered, as we wrote about it and practice it, is an amalgamation of great thinkers and practitioners over centuries of time, and in more modern works, secular, psychological, and somatic, as well as in all the great religious traditions, that call us forth for how it is that we can essentially, as we'd see it, have a relationship with ourselves, our bodies, our minds, and our hearts. So being centered in everyday living is being aware of that intelligence that we have, those sources of intelligence that are mental and emotional and physical that guide us. And it's in that intelligence that when we experience conflict, we have the experience that is also from our heads and our hearts and our bodies. It's just hijacked. It's on overdrive. The experience of conflict is an experience that is complete of the body and of the heart and of the mind. And so if you think about it, being centered, what calls us to be calm in the face of our storms, can happen even now in the checkout line on Black Friday. Let's imagine that's where you are. Let's say you're at your favorite store and there are about 7 people in line ahead of you from the cashier. And let's say that the woman who is at the cashier is having a price checked. And it's been a little while and people in line are starting to get a little bit fidgety. And they come back and they're giving her some information and she's not happy about that. You can tell because she steps back and maybe she rolls her eyes and maybe her hand goes out and it starts to get a little loud. Now being centered, and which you might be as you're standing in line, everything was going just fine, you become aware of it's uncomfortable for you. That loudness has you embarrassed perhaps for her. So being uncomfortable is a somatic body experience. Being embarrassed for her is a heart, emotional experience. Or maybe you go into judging mind, like how could she do this? Doesn't she realize all of us in line, we're all in a hurry, like give me a break, come on lady. That's mental mind. So in that conflict experience, because we have this ability to be centered, we can find the calm within. Could be a pause, taking a breath and filling our bellies. Could be with our eyes open or with our eyes closed. But it's this experience where we calm our racing thoughts. We calm our racing heart. We calm the pain, agitation that's in our body. And in that pause, there's so much wisdom. And so being relational, we choose to not make a situation worse for someone else because we're interested in greater well-being. And so in that place of calm, in that pause, being centered, we might choose to turn to the person behind us or in front of us, maybe with a kind word. Maybe it's aware that we will not assume the worst about that woman in front of us. Maybe we'll say, hey, maybe the price that information that she gets might help us all. Or hey, we're just glad that we're here getting these great buys. Or maybe it's something else that you say to someone about, hey, what are you doing over the holidays as you realize you're going to have a few minutes in line together? Or perhaps it's simply offering a gratitude as I know that, hey, I'm glad I'm here in this line with my hands and with my legs that got me here. Whatever it is, being centered allows us to have that authentic relationship with ourselves that we've been cultivating all along, where we're integrated again with our hearts and with our minds and with our bodies. And from that place of center, we're able to then respond to the world. Enjoy cultivating that wonderful place of center. It's a place of neutral, really. And it's a place where there's insight and there is right action and there is wisdom. Be relational. And this week, follow the opportunities that you have to be centered and beware of what I call the bypass, the transactional, relational bypass. You might have a prayer practice, you might have a yoga practice, you might have a daily walk that you go on. Whatever your practice is that you're cultivating, in conflict, all of that cultivation can go flying out the window. We know that. It's part of the human experience. But being centered is that commitment, that deeply relational, motivated commitment to yourself and to other, to not be on the bypass, but to be integrated. So be relational to your well-being.